but I have been through this before under different circumstances, and I've had trouble just ad-libbing, you know what I'm
Right.
saying, on one side of the conversation. I'm not that self-centered.
Tape is rolling.
You asked me how I got started in the sport. I was working for a company, special manufacturing, stainless steel food and dairy equipment. We made a 10 or 12 foot tall stainless steel cross for the local Baptist church. And they were looking for a steeplejack. I'm going like, well, that's really interesting. You know what I mean? I could do that, had no training whatsoever. I got to thinking about, well, I wouldn't just climb up there and like an idiot. I would need some kind of safety ropes, or certainly maybe even a parachute, right? But it was the tallest church in town, and I got the inquiry at that present time. I had just joined the Air Force National Guard, and I found out about parachutes. And they're vacuum packed and never opened in 7 years, and they're demilitarizing them. I'm going like, wait a minute, I could use one of those, right? Anyway, I did the thought process, which it didn't work. I was not qualified to be putting up the steeplejack cross. It's still there in a Baptist church in this town that I lived and worked in. But and it's semi-famous. Every once in a while it gets a little bit of coverage. But anyway, I got to thinking about parachutes, and this is kind of a goofy story, but I had a new sister-in-law who had a half-brother who was doing demo jumps in the county, right? So I approached him one day at the airport at an air show, and I'm going, hey, Norm, we're related, He says, how's that? Well, your half-sister is my sister-in-law. He says, yeah, right, And I says, hey, by the way, I'd like to jump out of an airplane. And of course, at that time, you always threw up a resistance. You don't just, oh, wonderful guy, you stand on the fence and let's be jump buddies. But anyway, he had a partner doing ladder act and wing walking and that sort of thing, part of it. I'm going, I could do that, right? And this guy got injured because he wasn't very bright. He got the ladder that hangs from the J3 and or a Waco or whatever, and he'd been told 100 times to not hang from the bottom rung because there's no plus or minus room for error, right? And I witnessed this. He's hanging from the bottom rung, and he got little what do you call it? Ground rush and some injuries. Anyway, so Norm, I said, I'd like to be part of your air show thing, and he reluctantly allowed me to do that. And we scraped up a rig, nylon twill canopy, 28-footer. I didn't know any better, right? And he was safety conscious, but he was airborne, had been out of airborne for a few years. And I still have the cotton harness that we used, right? And that was the hot stuff, man. And then we had a mutual friend that had a J3 Cub, and just like, here's the airport, and let's go. And I was never so terrified my whole life. My buddy says, over the airport, he says, well, if you're going to get out, now would be a really good time. I mean, we're looking at the airport. And anybody who's ever jumped on an airplane can understand and appreciate this. This is the heaviest parachute in the whole world. I had trouble getting out of the little J3, right? But I did, and I was hooked on the whole thing. It was a pull and jump, not a jump and pull, right? It's like, oh my God, There's a lot of fear factor in the first jump. But then I did a few practice jumps with that thing, and this was 1959, and I got a 13 or 15 jumps with a flat circular, and I concluded that was enough, because every Monday I got marks all over my body from the opening on these things, right? They're just horrible. But I thought this is too much of a beating for the amount of fun that it was. And at that time, their sport parachuting didn't even exist. But my now friend, Norm, says, "You got a sport rig ordered from Fort Campbell," and that was the hot source and the hot ticket, "and make one more jump with a sport rig." Okay. And that was a air show, and it has the sleeve deployed, which was half as quick as a flat circular bag. And I got, oh my God, this is perfect. You know, I think I'm having a malfunction. It was such a soft opening. And like I say, I became hooked then. Then I became not only hooked but addicted to the sport and the business. And I got into surplus equipment I couldn't get enough of. Then we learned the hard way on modifying the parachutes. We heard about the dairy slots and the Tiana biases and all that sort of thing. We were in our living room modifying our parachutes, our 28-foot ripstop, now 28-footers, and we thought we were in heaven, you know what I mean? And there was endless sources for equipment, and I developed a few sources where I was buying complete parachute rigs, harness, container for $35, and sometimes less than that. We were close to Chicago where we lived, and it was easy to develop sources because nobody else was demanding or needing this equipment. But so then this in the state of Wisconsin, there are lots of farmer picnics, state fairs, just events, and we hit them all. I mean, we just did so many demos, and by this time we're experts because we got 20, 30 jumps or something, you know what I mean? And we just knew everything. But, and there was two of us, and then we started drawing a little attention, and we heard about this guy that had an orange ticket, which was a B license. Whoa, this is hot stuff. This guy must know everything, right? But, and he was a cadre in the airborne, and he never got that out of his system. The rest of his life he talked like a cadre. He talked down to everybody, no matter what the circumstances was. But he had a lot of jumps and a pretty savvy guy, and we were off and running. Then we got several more airborne guys would show up, and we developed real fast. The Wisconsin skydivers. By 60, 61, we even incorporated and ended up doing buying a Cessna 182 on a lease program because we were such hot stuff. Of course, we were getting kicked out of where we started, the airport. Then we're going around the country, empty fields, doing shuttle things. We were popular, but we were so popular that we were in the way of sport aviation. So we had a lot of locations through the years. But, there's endless stories of demos that we did. Then a few of us broke off a little bit, and myself and one other fellow started a business with equipment because it was so happening, and people we associated with were looking for equipment, and we had it, you know. So we were modifying. Then we got our riggers, like because I was in the Air National Guard, it was easy to find a master rigger, so I got my rigger's license and snappy quick with my partner, and he's ex-airborne, and he knew everything, right? But we even, well, there's another story, but we went down to Fort Campbell and made a bandit jump down there with our looked like surplus rigs with modified. We caught a holy hell for exposing our modified flat circulars, you know. But, like we were off and running, and we started doing. My partner and I, his name was Bill Shopius. We were jumping around the Midwest on a pretty regular basis every week, and we had something going demo-wise, and we were living the high life, man. We just could do no wrong. The only thing that was wrong is that it was so popular and it got so busy that both of us had full-time jobs and both of us had a family, and then we knew beyond a doubt that you couldn't make a living in sport parachuting, right? It's never been done before. And my partner worked for an electric company. He had more time to devote to the business, and the deal was, he says, well, you need to devote more time to this, Don. I'm going, can't, man. I got my job, and I'm typically small business, working 50 hours a week, could take care of the family. I can't, this business is not going to work. We called our business Wisconsin Parasport, and it was real popular, you know. But I figured out I had to walk away, and here's a little side story. This all in good terms. We were jumping at different airports also at this time, like drop zones, if you will. And we had these students. We had one crazy student, I'm not sure I should say this on camera or not, but he made a jump or two, and he's got all these grand plans. He was just, oh yeah, this is it. I'm going to be a great skydiver, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like, well, good on you, right? And then he broke his ankle because he didn't pay attention. Figured, well, he's history. But after whatever 6, 7, 8 weeks, whatever, the guy come back, right? Also, just shooting his mouth off like, well, I am the future, what's happening, right? So, okay, I'm going to sell you my little part of this business. He didn't have any money. He had more mouth than he had money. And then I escaped. And my partner wasn't a bit happy because this guy was all mouth and no knowledge, right? So then I decided, because of my work situation, my family situation, and the draw of California, Elsinore specifically, and I got a job, not online, the old-fashioned way, you know, with snail mail. Got a job, actually in Phoenix. I said, I'm going to move my family, lock, stock, and barrel to the west, because I made the decision while I was shoveling snow up to here, right? So anyway, I made a beeline to California because the job in Phoenix didn't work out at all. The right to work state at the time and all that. But I discovered Elsinore. I knew I died and went to heaven, right? And we were, even though we had our own 182, they had a Howard's, and they had D-18s, Twin Beaches, and hundreds of people jumping. I'm going, oh man. And I've always been about work first, right? I had a good job, good family circumstances, and living in California just worked for me. But anyway, this guy that bought this piddly little part of the business, I'm watching him. I can't help but to watch him. He owed me money, which is inconsequential. It was so little, right? And all of a sudden, he's got a big drop zone going in Hell's Corners, Wisconsin. Going, wow, he's really, really happening, right? Next thing you know, he's buys Zephyr Hills drop zone in Florida. I go, this guy really is an operator, right? And suddenly he's got a whole bunch of jumps. Suddenly he's got a whole bunch of, he's got a pilot's license. I'm going like, I guess I judged the guy wrong, right? A year or so goes by, and he got busted with a DC-3 load of marijuana, I guess it was. And he had a great story, and he was warehousing the stuff in his mother's garage or something. Very complicated. Anyway, so he gets out on bail, thinking, oh, that's how that business works, right? But that wasn't enough. While he's out on bail, I guess they confiscated the DC-3 on him. Then he had a Lodestar. He got caught with a hackish load of Lodestar. And his line was, is that what that stuff is, really? So anyway, he just disappeared into the night, never to be seen again. This story takes 40 years to develop, right? And I'm telling a guy, a buddy in Illinois, about this guy. He said, well, yeah, he was my jump master. Yeah, he's our pilot. I go, he's resurfaced? Oh, yeah, he's all good. And I never knew the other end of the story, but that was one of maybe a half a dozen guys that couldn't resist the temptation in our sport to do bandit aviation things, you know what I mean? That's kind of beside the point. But my jumping career, such as it was always family first, job first. I was one of those old-fashioned guys where no matter what happened on the weekend, I was going to work Monday morning. And so many of my friends had a better idea. They stayed and become airport bums, and I envied that. But then I still had this idea you can't make a living in the sport. And I made prevailing wage, if you will, take care of my family. But no regrets, right? But then I'd party hardy on a lot of weekends in California. Too much